And we are live. Congratulations. You made it through Thanksgiving week. You survived. Good job. Another week of amazing food safety, food quality. That beautiful display that you put on your table was brought to people like Tino by the work that he's done in the field. And part of this is just kind of stepping back. And it was my message this morning too, which is, it's good to be grateful and say thank you sometimes for these type of things. And I'm very grateful for what my fellow food safety, food quality, and sanitation people do out there to put that food on the table. So from Tino and I, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
And so, yes. And welcome, everybody. This is the Food Safety Chat Live. And food safety does not take a break for holidays. We are here every single day of the frickin' week. And this Friday, no exception. So if you're new, this is a discussion. This is meant to be a sharing of knowledge, a sharing of information, and a back and forth with that information. So if you have questions, guys, stick them in the comments and let us know down here what you're thinking, and we'll work it into the conversation. So we live stream at this time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern on LinkedIn and YouTube every week. And part of what's cool about what we do is building this community of people, because food safety is not a point of competition. We're all doing this together, and the consumers don't care what companies we work for. All they care about is that the food is safe. And with that connection piece of it, my guest last week, Elizabeth Fernandez, a former VP of QA with McCain, is a connector. And she's very good. I mean, she's been sending me invites and people she knows, and she's like, oh my God, you have to have Tino on the show. And lo and behold, you are here, Mr. Tino Hernandez. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How about yourself, Brian?
Oh, not too bad. So
Good.
You do so much stuff here. I had to write it down in my notes. So you're a sanitation expert. You have a company, NeuroQuest AI, where you are the AI discovery partner, and you're an author as well. 75 Secrets to Level Up Your Sanitation Game, with other material you put together as well. I'll put the link. Ooh, look at that. Oh, that's a cool cover.
Right there.
I like that.
That's the physical copy.
And if you don't follow Tino on LinkedIn, you need to. So that's Tino Hernandez with a Z. And he's got a ton of good content. And I can definitely see, Tino, the AI linkage within your posts, because you'll have the caricatures, and you and I share a common passion for cars and all things with motors. And you have some really cool pictures on there sometimes of classic cars from the 60s and things like that, which keeps it entertaining for sure.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, stay entertaining. And deliver a message.
Yeah, what we do, and we'll get into this too, right, is with what we do, you have to be entertaining. There's nothing worse than sitting down for a 75 slide PowerPoint and then expecting people to sit there and pay attention. Yeah, it's just like, oh my God, it doesn't work.
Got to be dynamic.
For sure. So I am in Loveland, Colorado, guys, and one of the things that we love to do here on the chat is let everybody know where in the world you're at. And so you're traveling to visit family. So where are you at, Tino?
Yes, I'm in Davenport, Iowa today at the Black Hawk Hotel. But I live in Indiana.
Kind of one of the things in what we do, right? Even when it's traveling, even family or work, it's pretty common.
Yes.
So Elizabeth is joining us. Thank you. Michelle's here as well, and Sean and Bonna. Very good, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this holiday Friday. And actually,
welcome.
I don't know about you, Tino, but for me, I mean, these weeks are kind of great here toward the end of the year. This gives you a chance to reflect and think about what's happened during the year, chance to really plan out 2026. It tends to, at least on the corporate side, be a little quieter, but in reality, on the plant side, it's actually busier because they're trying to get those rushes. Oh, and you're trying to get everything done and everything correct, and you're really, really pressed for time for sure. So that can be a major challenge. So let's transition, everybody. Pick up your favorite beverage and join Tino and I for a holiday.
I have two.
You have two?
I have two favorite beverages, yeah. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but I'll start with this one.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear that story. But before we do, Tino, are you ready? Are you ready for the
I am ready as I'll ever be.
All right.
I'm ready for this one.
We have a holiday-themed dad joke here as well. So, Tino, what happened to the turkey yesterday when he got into a fight?
With who? I have no idea. What happened to the turkey when he got into a fight?
Poor turkey got the stuffing knocked out of him.
Yeah, I'll drink some water to that one.
Oh,
The stuffing knocked out of him. I hope it was cranberry stuffing.
I don't know. From a food safety standpoint, it's something I never do. I never put stuffing in the turkey. Right? It's risky. I always make it separately.
Yeah.
Beth liked our joke there. Good.
Yeah.
Feel free to share. Absolutely copyright free. I'm going to copy that. So I always love bringing new people on the show because it always brings a new perspective, a new way of looking at things, new thoughts to the group, which is what we want to do. So as we start off here, I gave a brief introduction here, Tino, for all the different things that you work on. But why don't you give, from your perspective, a little bit about you and who you are and what you're up to?
Cool. Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Beth because she connected us. Like you said, she's a connector, and I admire her for that. She's great doing that. I couldn't do it like she does. And thank you for having me on. It's a privilege, and I love what you're doing here. You're using the medium to spread the word, spread the gospel, right? To get the word out there about food safety, and I hope a lot of people are watching. And I think you've done a great thing with this. I admire what you're doing. I need to get one of my own. So what about me? I live in Indiana, like I said earlier, with my wife and my dog. Marco is my dog. He's here with me right now. I like riding motorcycles, which a lot of people tell me is dangerous, but it's what I do. And I remember when I was a kid, we would walk across this cornfield that to me felt like it was a mile long to get to the motorcycle dealership because my mom would never let us have one. And I was maybe third, fourth, fifth grade. I'd walk across that field and I'd go into the Suzuki dealership. And the moment I opened the door and I'd smell that rubber, I was in heaven. And I'd go touch the small motorcycles with my hands. And ever since then, I've been hooked. So I do motorcycles. I've got a lot of projects going on. I like working at home. Like I said, this guy right here was from a LinkedIn post, and I couldn't stop writing, and it turned into that. And so I do a lot of that. The Heroes of Sanitation, which debuted this morning, that I'm really excited about. Another one of my projects. I just sat down one day and it just came out, and I didn't stop. I used AI for that. I don't draw that way, but I can talk more about that later. But that's in a nutshell. That's me. I'm always busy. If I'm not, and I hold down to full-time jobs like sanitation.
Exactly. Well, and I think that's one of the keys to success in life. It's keeping busy, and you see, learning new stuff and increasing your knowledge and expanding. You'll see these centenarians, who take up weightlifting when they're 90, or they start running, or all these, or they go back to college, or these things that they're doing. That's winning. That's winning at life, and I think that's how you keep engaged. And it's how you keep active. It's like, once I retire, I'm going to do X. Really? Well, why don't you do it now? What's holding you back?
Agreed. And
that's when the buts generally come out. Oh, yeah, but I'll do it someday.
Yeah.
And then how many times do you see? It's always a tragic story, isn't it? Where you hear the story of somebody who retires and they're 70 and now they have all these different plans, and then they die a year later. And it's just like, you never know. You never know. So you have to take advantage of it while you can.
Yeah, I can't see myself retiring.
No, I don't either. People may want me to go away, but too bad. I'm here.
No, Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger finished up a book right before he passed away in his late 90s. He was still working. He worked his whole life. Yeah.
It's inspiring, people like that. And just like my colleagues at Culture Advisory Group, so Brett and Paul are both here in the chat. So good to see you guys. So we got a ton to cover here, and so part of this, and you'd reference this, your day job into what you're doing, is really critical to food safety. And as we get into this, I kind of wanted to call this out in advance as we're going through our conversation here today, Tino, in that what we're talking about here is common to anybody who's managing a team. So even if you're not in sanitation, you're going to look at this and say, well, this doesn't really apply. Yeah, no, this all applies to everybody. And if anything, the leader of the sanitation team has it harder because it's an extremely challenging job, and it's not really it takes a special person, I think is probably the best way to phrase it, to work on the sanitation crew and have that level of pride in doing what they do, knowing, as we talk about here on the chat, that if you do a great job at it, nobody notices because it's just kind of expected. The only time you hear something is if somebody's upset. It's like, oh, why didn't this get done? So, come on, really?
Or you ruined my motor.
Yeah, exactly. And this applies everywhere, but really it gets around to that people side. And I wanted to kind of start our conversation around that. One of the taglines you have, Tino, is the people development guy. And what do you mean by that phrase? What's that encompass?
I was doing some research one night and with AI, and the term business development came up. And I looked at that and I thought, that's interesting. I don't see myself developing much business. And I started to think about that, and I'm going back and forth with AI. And I came up with that. I'm more of a people development guy. And so I told the AI that, and it said, yeah, that's it. And because I talk a lot to my AIs, I've got 5 of them, and they know me pretty well. And so it says, yeah, that's it. That's what you do. And based on what we talked about, that's kind of what came out. And it really got me to thinking introspectively about my whole life. I just entered my 60s. So I got this long past behind me. And I want to take you back, if you don't mind, Brian. I want to take you back to the late 90s. I'm a lot younger, and I'm a sales guy. I'm an outside sales guy for a temp agency.
Okay.
And this all relates to food, I promise. And I'm a salesperson for a temp agency. So I'm trying to get businesses to buy into our product, which is our people. And I'm knocking on doors all over town. And I drive into this industrial plaza, and there's all these white buildings. They all look the same, no windows except for the front door. And maybe a sign. A lot of them had no signage because it wasn't a place where customers come to, right? So I show up, I open the first door that I parked in front of, and I walk in. There's this lady sitting at this table, and she's got papers scattered all across her desk. There's no computers because we haven't hit that yet, right? They're not ubiquitous yet. And I asked her, I said, hey, is somebody here that's in charge? Maybe you or a manager, an owner? And she looks up at me with a smile on her face, and she says, yeah. And she says, Dan, and the whole time she's looking at me with this smile on my face, almost like a smirk. And she says, Dan, someone's here to see you. And there's this fella sitting behind her about 15 feet. And he's at his desk with his pen, and he's writing away in a folder, in a notebook. And he says, he just gestures like this. And so she says to me, go on back. So I walk around her desk back to where Dan's sitting. And I stand in front of Dan. And Dan's an older gentleman. I can tell he's probably in his mid to late 60s. For me, that's older because remember, about 25, 30 years, 25, 26 years younger than I am now. And Dan's writing away, and he continues to write, and he's writing. And I'm standing there in front of him, and he keeps writing. He doesn't acknowledge me in any way. He just keeps writing. Finally, after what to me seemed like an eternity, he takes his pen, he deliberately puts it down on the desk really slowly. He closes his notebook really slowly and lets it fall to the desk. He then sits back in his chair, pulls off his reading glasses, hasn't said a word yet. Very slowly folds them up, puts them down. He rubs his face, takes a deep breath, and he says, can I help you? So I'm a sales guy, and I says, yeah, as I go into my elevator pitch, right? And it didn't take long. And he looks at me and he says, are you done? And I say, yeah. He says to me, who taught you how to be a salesperson? Why do you come into my office here? You don't know anything about it. He went on and on like that. And I'm standing there and I'm turning red. I can feel it. I'm starting to get angry because of the way he's talking to me, and he's being vulgar. The whole works, right? It's not comfortable. So I'm nervous. I'm angry. I don't know if I should walk out or if I should reach out with my hands and strangle him. What should I do here? I just stood there, frozen. And I didn't move. But you know why I didn't move? Because everything Dan was telling me was true. I wasn't a good salesman. I had come into his business. I didn't know anything about him. And the litany of things that he told me, so much of it was true. I came in unprepared. But I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell everybody that's watching right now, Dan changed my life. This is what he did next. After he finished, he says to me, "Do you have a tape player in your car?" And for those of you guys who don't know what a tape player is, cassette tape player in your car. That's how he listened to music back then. I says to him, "Yes, I do." So he reaches over to this shelf that's on next to his desk. He pulls out what looked like a book to me, right? About this size. And he lays it on the table. He opens it up, and there's these 10 cassette tapes in it and a booklet. And he pushes it across the table with both hands, and he says, "Do you think you can listen to that?" I says, "Yeah, I can." So he closed it, pushed it out toward me the rest of the way, picked up his pen, opened his notebook, and he says, "Don't come back till you're done." He starts writing. So I picked it up. I walked out. I'm like, "What just happened?" Right? And I looked at the thing sitting next to me, and it on the cover. It said, "Lead the Field" by Earl Nightingale.
Ah,
Earl Nightingale started the self-help business.
yep.
I listened to
Nightingale
those
Conant.
tapes.
Yeah.
Nightingale Conant. And I listened to those tapes. They changed my life. Dan changed my life. I can't tell you how many times I went back to Dan just for career advice, life advice. Dan was an angel sent from God to me. So that's where this comes from. That's why I call myself the people development guy, because that's what I find myself doing in my job. I help develop sanitation people or anybody else who comes my way, right? If you're looking to do something with your life, I'm going to find a way to get you there.
Right.
And
Well, it's
that's why.
interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
It's just a couple of observations is as we all look back over our careers, if you're having a really good career, you can generally point back to somebody. There was that key inflection point in your career where they put you on a different path. I had an issue like that as well too, that I write about in my book as well. And he took interest in you in a person. And the other side of that is you took action, right? You could have walked out. You could have gone down. You could have walked out there and said that old crusty SOB. Who does he think he is? He doesn't know anything.
Right.
He doesn't know who I am. What a grumpy old man. And then went on your way. And you'd be in a completely different spot than you are right now.
Wouldn't be here with you.
Take that initiative. And so many people, Tino, and this is something I would always make sure my team members understood. You're the only person responsible for your development. Nobody else can help you grow. And a lot of people too will be like, well, if the company doesn't do this for me and the company has nothing to do with it. It's you. What do you want to do? And whenever I would put together a development plan as part of the objectives for my team members, I would say, okay, I've got X number of dollars in the budget for you for training. What would you like to do? And I would never tell them what to do. If they came back to me with something stupid, I'd be like, no, I'm not sending you Disneyland for training. No, that's not happening. What do you want to do, and how does that fit into your career development? But that was just the first step. And I think already this is probably why you and I are already getting along so well, is that you're responsible for your own growth and development. And so for me, the reason I know Nightingale Conant is I was the same way. I would buy the cassette tapes and listen to these different individuals, Zig Ziglar. Oh my God, right?
Yes.
And when I was younger, in the morning when we would eat breakfast, we would put Paul Harvey on the radio and listen to Paul Harvey and his rest of the stories. Do you remember
the
those?
Rest of the story? Yes.
And
now
if you're one
the
of the
rest of the
younger
story.
people out there, look them up. And it was always an amazing twist. It was some success story, and you didn't know who it was until the end. And they would reveal who it was, and it was like, oh my God. We see. I actually saw this on LinkedIn this morning too, Tino. So the former head of the CEO for, what was it, Coca-Cola? I forget her name. Extremely successful, but the point they were making in the post was when she started at the company, she was a receptionist, and she worked her way through the entire company to become CEO. Normally, all we see is the end result, the success at the end. We don't see all of the work that went in to get to that point. And also, a big piece of that too is we don't know what struggles people have gone through to get to that point. So, always give people the benefit of the doubt until they prove otherwise. Is how I always look at that.
100% agree.
Yep. So, one of the lessons that we've learned is that success is not an individual effort; it's the result of your team. And the better you are at building your team, the more successful you're going to be. My goal was always to build a team that didn't need me. And that scares a lot of people, doesn't it?
Yeah. I agree. I'm 100% with you.
I want to find my successor. Who is going to move into my role? Because I can't advance in my career until I find the person who can backfill my role.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, it's difficult to find those people. I've been doing this. So I started my first management job in 1995. So that's 30 years ago. And in
Mhm.
that whole time, I can point to three people who actually had the wherewithal, the gumption, the desire to move ahead and was willing to learn, was willing to stand there with me, just like I stood with Dan
Yeah.
and learn, right, and grow. And I've left them behind, and they took over, which I can relate 100% to what you're saying. And one of the things I think you and I talked about was the trajectory for people in sanitation. Some folks may not like what I'm about to say, but I'm not looking for people who are trying to leave sanitation. I
Mhm.
talked to somebody that I actually the first person who hired me in the area. She and I were talking earlier this year, and she says to me, "I'm surprised you're still in sanitation," which kind of took me aback because I tried production, I went back to sanitation, but I'm looking for people who are looking for a career in sanitation. I mean, we don't
Mhm.
ask our plumber, "Hey, when you're done with this plumbing stuff, well, what's your next step?"
Yeah.
Right? We don't talk to our dentist, say, "Hey, wait, what are you going to do after you're done with this?" Right?
Yeah.
They've got their career. Why can't sanitation be a career? Those are the people that I'm looking for. Not the people going through it. I mean, if they want to go through to another department, to another career, that's fine. I'll do everything I can to help them, right? I'm the people development guy. But if you want to stay in sanitation, man, I'm looking for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what are those indicators? What are you looking for in individuals that make a good team member for sanitation?
You can always tell they got a spark in their eye, right? They
Mhm.
got a little something in their step. Even if it's a slow step, you can just tell by the way they talk to you, they ask questions, they show interest, they show
Mm.
up for work. It's huge. With me, that's huge. If you can't show up for work, that's a problem,
Yeah.
because sometimes the world of sanitation, I'm sure you've seen it where they're going to call you because something broke at work and you're there. You weren't planning on being there. Something happened, a recall, right? And
Yeah.
you're there. You got to do it. And if you've got an attendance issue, you might not show up. Not going to be good for your career.
Yeah.
But yeah, people who've got ideas, who don't mind speaking up, even like I said, even if they're quiet, you don't. Not everybody has the same personality, right? But I always tell my staff, sanitation is a thinking person's game. You can't. It
Mhm.
isn't just, it isn't rote. It changes by the minute sometimes. You
Yeah.
came in expecting to do X, and all of a sudden you're doing A, B, C, and D, and they need it in the next hour. Right. So I'm looking for people who have ideas, people who are looking to change, people are looking to change the system, right? People who are willing to learn and apply what they learn. Yeah.
Right.
Follow the
So some
rules.
so some key things coming out of that is number one is they have to be consistent. You have to be able to depend on them and know that they're there day in and day out. Snowstorm doesn't matter; they're there.
Hmm.
They're dependable. The second key point that I pulled out of that, that you said, which I always look for too, is when you're looking for potential new leaders, they're generally the ones that can be a pain in the ass because they're challenging you. Hey,
Yeah.
Tino. Yeah, I get this is why we clean this piece of equipment this way, but how about if we do this? I think this is a better way. What do you think? And they're constantly looking for new ways, new things, new ways of doing things. There's,
Yeah.
I in quality, and I think this probably applies in your area too. Is I kind of tend to look at people in two different groups, and both of these groups are needed in the organization. There are people who follow the rule book and people who write the rule book. And
Agreed.
you need more people who follow the book. You only need a handful of people who actually write the book. Because if everybody's trying to write the book, nobody's following the book. But
Right.
the people who write the book are the ones that create the systems, who create the procedures, who manage the training. They're the forward-looking groups. And they're the ones that you really need to take care of in your organization because if they get bored, they're out of right? They're going to go somewhere else where they've got a bigger challenge. And you need to be aware and identify those people, which works in really well with what we're talking about. Do you agree with that?
So agreed. Yeah. You get a whole mix of people. And you said earlier, you give everybody the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So I do the same thing. That kind of brings to mind back in the 80s, I was working for a summer youth program,
Uh-huh.
a nonprofit summer youth program. I was maybe 21. And My job was we would find local communities that had jobs for kids to do 3 to 4 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week, and they were all from underprivileged neighborhoods, families, and they would come in, apply. We'd find them a job. We'd take them to the job in a bus or something, and then we'd watch over them, right? And each one of us counselors had a certain number of kids that we watched over certain areas, usually schools, civic things like that, libraries, and generally they were cleaning, doing weeds, whacking, things like that, lawn mowing. And I remember one day I'm sitting at the office and we get a call and they say on the intercom, "Hey, Tino, you got a call line, whatever." I pick up the line. It's the school. And he says, "Hey, we got an issue. We need you to come over here." He says, "We got a problem with Gracie." So I said, "Okay, I'm on my way." So I get in my car, I'm driving across town. Gracie was probably 15 years old. Came from a rough neighborhood. Gracie had very colorful language, shall we say. Gracie was tough. So I get there and I get to the front door and the head janitor, head custodian meets me at the door. He says, "She's down the west hallway. She's been sitting there for over an hour now." Like, okay, I'll go find her. So I walk into the school. Most of the lights are off because all the kids are gone. It's summertime, right? And it's kind of dark in the school. And then I make the turn around to the hallway where Gracie's sitting. And I can see her at the end of the hallway, kind of sitting by the window, looking out the window. The window's at the end of the hallway. The hallway's pretty dark. So it almost feels like a scene from a movie, right? And all the lockers down the hallway are all opened. Every single last one of them. It's like they're saluting, right? They're all open. And I see Gracie there. And so I make my way over there and I come down on one knee and I says, "Gracie, what's going on?" And she says, "They want me to clean all these effing lockers." She says, "All of them." And then she's angry, right? And like I said, she had some colorful words. So I'm like, okay, now what do I do? So I sat down next to her. She's sitting on the ground like this. And I says, "Hey, Gracie, you're only here for 4 hours. So why don't you clean one locker at a time? And when you're done with it, shut the door and go to the next one. And do what you can in those 4 hours. And when you come back tomorrow, do the same thing." And I said, "Do you think you could do that?" She's like, "Yeah, I guess." And she picked up her bottle and she started cleaning her lockers. My point in telling you this is that I see a lot of people come into sanitation and they are just as overwhelmed as Gracie is.
Yeah.
When they walk in that factory, some of them have never seen anything like that before. Some of them come from a smaller factory, maybe if they have sanitation experience. Maybe they've never been in a factory like ours, right? Maybe they've never seen equipment because the equipment that we have varies from product to product, right? So this is all overwhelming for them. And then you put them in the sanitation environment and they're trying to control things like water and foam and what color brush do I use and what do I do with that? And what did he say? Zone what? One, right? So it can be pretty overwhelming for these folks. So I think we have to take that into account because it's easy for us as leadership to say, Joe's not getting it. He's not, I don't see him staying, right? We're not going to keep Joe, but we have no idea, like you said, what's going on inside of that person. Right. So that's when we have to come alongside of them, just like we did with Gracie, and help them get through it.
Yep. Well, and one of the key things that I learned, to your point around the overwhelm, is that in kind of my first leadership role, we had documentation that wasn't very good. And we had these massive work instructions, Tino, for cleaning. They were like 30, 35 pages long of just step one, step two, step three. And we expected people to follow those. And a guy named Dave was our sanitation manager. He went on to become plant manager after I left. And I'm like, "Dave, do these work instructions do anything?" He's like, "No." He's like, "We wrote those work instructions to make the auditor happy." He's like, "Things change." To your point, things change here so much that by the time I wrote those work instructions, they were already obsolete. They sit on a shelf. They don't matter. I'm like, huh. So we started looking at the processes. And to your point, what we did was we broke it down, just like you're saying, because really sanitation is a series of different activities applied to different things. So if you have a heater head block in a machine, you're going to clean that the same, and it doesn't matter what machine it's in. The same goes for COP or whatever it is within those machines, belts, whatever. And so we broke our work instructions down into those specific tasks. So when we were training the sanitation team members, we say, okay, you grab this instruction, this instruction, this instruction, and then we broke it down into those different processes so then that they understood how those worked overall. And it helped, to your point, with the locker story, is it helped to break it down into the steps without overwhelming.
Right. Yeah, that's huge.
Definitely.
Did a good job there. Yeah.
So one of the key things, and you alluded to this as well, is finding the right people. So what was your methodology for identifying the right people? Because guess what, guys, it's not HR's job to find the right people. They're just doing the screening. It's your job to find the right people. So what was it? Tell us a little bit about your process for that.
I'm finding it difficult to find people who have sanitation experience, but let's start there. Let's start with somebody who has sanitation experience. So what I'll do is I usually have their resume in front of me because that's what HR will give me, and I'll come in with them, sit down, introduce myself. We do the niceties, and then I look at them and tell them, you know what, this piece of paper, we're not going to talk about it. I want you to tell me a story, right? And so I'm trying to help, because what I tell them is, tell me a story from the moment you punch in. What do you do? Talk to me about what you see. What does it feel like? And I'll literally have to coach them through the story, right? Okay, so you come in, you punch in. What do you do then? Oh, I go to the locker room. Okay, what do you do in the locker room? And he tells me, right? Okay, so you're into the plant now. What's the first place you go to? Well, we go to whatever it might be, right? And I'm walking them through, having them tell me a story. And in that story, you can ask a lot of questions, because they'll say, well, then I go clean the fryer. Oh, cool. He cleans the fryer. He understands how to clean a fryer. At least I hope he does, right? And then you start asking questions about the fryer. Well, what kind of chemical do you use? Well, we use X chemical. What brand of chemical? We'll talk, because sometimes they can't remember what it is. They don't even remember the brand. They just know they call it whatever. It would depend on the chemical manufacturer, right? So I'm trying to get them to tell me a story, because in that story, I can, in their day in the life, or even a week in the life, I can get a sense of what they know and what they don't know.
Right.
That's how I do it, because I can always say, well, tell me about a time that you did this, or tell me about a time you did that. But to me, they could make it up. But if we're in real time, if I'm pushing them through their job in real time, they don't have time to make things up. They're going to tell me exactly what's happening in front of them at that point, because I can see them. Their eyes are going up. They're looking that way and they're thinking, and they're telling me the story now. So that's how I interview. And if they don't work in sanitation, then I have to find something that relates to what they do.
Yeah. What in those type of scenarios? Number one, guys. So very important. So people prepare for interviews, and there's the typical questions. I never ask the typical questions. And to your point, it's like, okay, explain to me how you go about this, right? Which now you're into open-ended interviews. And to your point, one of the key things you're looking for that is, are they getting excited? Oh, yeah. Well, tell me about a time when you were cleaning this thing and it didn't go right. Oh my God, yeah. It was really busy at the holiday. We did this and this, and we pulled everybody together and we got everything done. It's right. It's like, okay, pride in work. Good.
Yeah.
Good. I like to see that. And to your point, you're also evaluating the ability to communicate with other individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, well, what do you do on this day? I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And you can figure that out pretty quick. One of the things that I would do is, so number one, so pulling out of this, so Tino is absolutely 100% right. The resume is just there to show the basics, that person is at least qualified to be sitting in front of you.
Right.
What I would do if I was interviewing people for, like director levels or whatever, is once they made it past the initial screening, I would schedule a phone call with them before I would consider bringing them in. Because most times I'm flying them somewhere. I want to make sure I'm spending my money correctly.
Wow.
I would schedule an hour interview with the individuals on the phone. And just like you, asking questions like this, well, tell me about, what essentially what I was trying to get to is what makes you interested, what really gets you passionate. And I would try and figure these things out. And if after a half hour of that hour conversation, Tino, I was bored with the conversation, I was looking at the clock or I was checking my email, I knew it wasn't a good fit. If, however, that hour came and went, I looked at the clock and I'm like, whoa, oh my God, hold on. It's we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. Geez, I'm sorry, I went over on time. Can we keep talking? Oh yeah, let's keep talking. Then I knew it was a good fit. And I would be, okay, well, tell you what, come in. Because part of this, and kind of infused into what we're talking about here as well, is we're trying to find people who care and who are passionate, and also people that we want to work with, right? Because we're going to be married at the hip with these people in our jobs and our roles. I don't want to be working with an a-hole. I want to be working with somebody who's a good person, who is someone that I enjoy learning from and that we can collaborate and grow over time. We've all known plenty of people in our careers people who are very smart, but they're jerks. And they find themselves isolated very quickly because nobody wants to be around them.
Yeah. Yeah. Had a few of those.
And you know them right away. One of the things I would do if I was going in to evaluate a plant for whatever reason, one of the things that I would do is I would do the plant tour, and I would, you can kind of pick out the leaders pretty quick. And I would figure out who they were. And at some point during that visit, I would circle back around to these people. And I would say, okay, so hi, what's your name? Da da da. You work in this area? Yeah. How long have you been here? I've been here for 15 years. Got a question for you. Who are the jerks in the plant? And every single time, everybody would go, that guy, that girl. Yeah. And it was always the same. Everybody knew who they were. To your point, right? Those are the people who shouldn't be there. They're there to get a paycheck. They're there for whatever reason. They're not bringing the organization forward. And it was a really good way to, if that organization was having problems, those three individuals were probably tied into it in some way.
Yeah. Agreed. It's troublemakers.
Yep.
There's
tons of good comments here as well.
You've heard of we've all heard about the 80-20 principle, right? Yeah. And somebody took it even a little step further. I was listening to something, I think it was on YouTube, and they said that 80% of the work that gets done is done by the square root of your team. Yeah, that's very few people. And then I started looking at my team, and I can probably count the superstars on one hand, right? Yeah. Everybody else is filling in the gaps. But I've got these people who are, look, this is what I did. This is what I want to do. What do you think about this? I have one team member. She's literally written me reports. She's a retired police officer. If she's watching, she knows what I'm talking about. And she literally brings me a report like this, right? And she says, this is what I think we should do. And she's got awesome ideas, and she leads the team well. And, people like that are just, if you could have a whole team like that, that'd be great.
But it never happens, does it? It
never happens. So you have to work with what you have. And we train every month. They spend poor things have to spend an hour with me every month and listen to me train them on something. And we're always talking about, I'm always telling them, hey, everybody, we all have to fight the same. We all have to get out there and push hard. And I thank them for all that they're doing. I know it isn't easy, and there's no glory in it because, production folks can go out to the warehouse, say, hey, look what I made. Or they're walking through the grocery store and they can show their family, look, I made this, right? Sanitation people don't have that. Like we said earlier, you don't know they exist until something goes wrong.
Yeah. So on the people side of things, so you've gone through the interview process. You've got a potential new person to work on your team, and you bring them on board. What is your process, Tino, for determining if they're a good fit? What does that look like for you?
Well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to spend 2 hours, and sometimes we even go a little over, but they spend 2 hours with me personally. All new hires, whether it's one-on-one or a group of them. And we go through things like the 7 steps of sanitation, tact, and we go through every piece of training that I think I should deliver to them because it has a certain level of seriousness to it, such as allergen control, right? The color codes, things like that. And I pretty much lay it out on the table to them and tell them how serious I am about sanitation, why I do it. And the reason I do it is because I always say it's a promise we make to our customers, to my family, that when I go in there, I'm going to ensure that whatever I've done is done properly. And it gives me an opportunity to tell them, I've done your job. I've cleaned drains, I've been up on the high lift cleaning, and not as a leader, but as exactly as a technician like you've been. Because back in the early 90s, I worked at Oscar Mayer here in Davenport, Iowa. And the day I quit the union, because I had to be in the union for 30 days, is the day I lost all my privileges. So I ended up doing like every job that they had. I worked almost 2 years working every shift that they had. They bounced me around like a basketball, but I learned a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so I've been able to do pretty much every job that everybody in the food factory is going to do, including sanitation. So I can tell them that, yeah, I've done that before. Exactly what you're doing, and this is how I did it, and this is how I took pride in the job. Because here's what I'm going to say, Brian. There is no glory in cleaning. Period. It's almost a stigmatized profession, if you even wanted to call it a profession. And this is worldwide. Nobody wants to be the cleaning person. I hear stories all the time, and everybody likes them on LinkedIn. And it drives me bananas when I see this. And I don't just see them on LinkedIn. You hear them all the time. And it's always about some CEO. And we're always talking about how great the CEO is and how human the CEO is, that he or she rubs elbows with, C-level people, and he can get out there and talk to other company CEOs, and he's just a great guy at that. But he's so down to earth that he'll even stop and get to know the cleaning person.
Yeah.
I never hear somebody say he's so down to earth he stops and he talks to the COO or the accounting guy, right? Or the customer service manager. It's
Yeah.
always the cleaning person. So what have we
True.
done just in that little story where we tried to talk highly of one person, and great, it's a great person. To me, I wish people would quit writing that. I have to hold myself back from not commenting on those, because I'm going to rip somebody apart, because it's my profession, right? I owned a
Yeah.
cleaning business when I came into the food industry as gung ho as I am now. I had just left. I had just sold a cleaning company, and so I've done all sorts of cleaning. The only thing I tell people, the only thing I haven't cleaned is an operating room and the space shuttle. Pretty much everything in between, I've cleaned it, and I like what I do, and I think people should take pride in it. And I don't like it when people disparage cleaning and the people that do it, because this world would be dead if we didn't clean it, if people didn't
Yeah.
take the time to clean it. And I think that people that clean deserve a little bit more respect. Okay, I'll get off my
100%.
soapbox now.
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
can't argue with anything you just said. Um, Extremely valuable function in the plant. And as we were kind of talking about too when we were preparing for the chat, if I had a quality issue, so a consumer found a little bit of a gasket in some cheese, or I was having micro hits on part of the process, the first person I always talked to was the sanitation manager, because they know what's really going on. And that worked out really, really well, because number one, though, unfortunately, some of the plants I worked at, well, most of the plants I worked at, sanitation was third shift, so I would have to wake the poor sanitation
Yeah.
manager up. They just finished a night shift, went home to get some sleep. Maybe tag team with the wife and take over the taking care of the kids. After the wife took care of them all night. And
Yeah.
it was but the information I would get from the sanitation manager was invaluable, because they
Yeah.
knew exactly what was going on in that plant better than anybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. They're all over the plant. Yeah. The if you think about access too, who has access to most of the plant? Sanitation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking in particular one company. I had a very good nighttime quality person, and at the end of the sanitation shift, part of her job was to go around and inspect the equipment. And she was very thorough. She was Filipino, and she's a pit bull. But the sanitation crew had a great deal of respect for her, and their job was to make her happy. And she would go in there, and she would be like, "Take off that pump plate," and they would do it. And she'd go in, and she had her flight, and she'd be in there, and she's like, "Good, good," And they would just, yeah, right. And she inspired them, and it was good. And I think that part of that feedback mechanism was important, because the crew was showing just how good a job they could do. And that plant, it was a cold filled cream cheese, a whipped cream cheese product, very susceptible to micro issues, mold, and these things. We had a fantastic complaint rate. And that was tied directly, I'm 100% convinced it was tied to the pride of the sanitation crew and that relationship we built with them.
Yeah. No, 100%. You got to love what you do.
Yeah. Right. It
And
doesn't
if you
matter.
don't, your staff's going to know it.
Yeah. And yeah, the people who take a job just because they want money, yeah, they don't last very long in those roles,
Yeah.
because you have to, and I think that's kind of part of the theme of what we're talking about here today too, is you have to receive more than just that from what you do, and building out that pride and understanding that no, a lot of times, and this is really true in quality too, there's not somebody there slapping you on the back saying good
Right.
job, or
Right.
holding a sales recognition award where they bring you up in front of everybody clapping. Nope. It doesn't work that way in what we do, unfortunately.
No.
And you have to build that inner strength. And I think that's a benefit in what we do in sanitation and QA. That builds resilience. It's like, no, I do
Yeah.
a good job because it gives me pride in what I do, and
Agreed.
knowing that. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things we recently did to help build pride, I used to do my monthly training by shift,
Mhm.
and I decided to use the. I can't do it with all 3 shifts, but I do it with the first and the second shift, where we have the shift overlap. So I tell the whole
Uh-huh.
plant from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, there is going to be a sanitation person on the building. We're in training, because at
Mhm.
2 o'clock one shift starts and the other one's starting to leave, right? So if I get them together at 1 o'clock, I have 2 shifts together, and that helps build synergy. That's something we just started doing about 3 months ago, and I think it
Mhm.
works great. That to
Yeah.
get both shifts, because I got double the people there, and we're starting to build some camaraderie, and then I think it's working great. So we're going to keep doing that.
Awesome.
You have to
Sean's got a
find.
good.
You have to find. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying here that, yeah, this kind of fits in what we're talking about here, is competition between the teams. Huge, right? The
Yeah.
team that has the best compliance rate at the end of the month gets a special award. Um, and it's more for that bragging rights. At White Wave, my boss at White Wave put together a competition between all the different plants. And he went out and he found the company, Tino, that actually makes the wrestling championship belts. You know, those
Yeah.
giant.
Yeah.
Well, this was the company that makes those. And he found that company. He
Wow.
created a belt, a wrestling belt. And at the end of the year, it had this big display case. And the plant at the end of the year that had the best quality records would win the belt for that year. And it was,
Nice.
and so the CEO would come out and everything. And the best part of it was everybody in the plant would take turns putting on the belt and holding it up like a wrestler, and getting their picture taken with it. And then they
That's
had this
awesome.
wall of all these people in these pictures, right? So like one guy had like draped over his shoulder and he's all, yeah, right. It was just, and then they would use that, then the plant that won would razz the other plants, and kind of build on that. It was an amazing program.
Yeah, that sounds cool. That's awesome. I like that, because you're changing the culture. You're changing the perception of who they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
It's those. Yeah. I mean, we were talking earlier about, right, this is Thanksgiving with the football games and everything else. Competition is healthy. Right? It's a good
yeah.
way to promote team spirit and building those things out. I
Yeah.
had a really good plant manager in my past as well, who had a challenge for his plant. So this guy was brought into this plant. It was a struggling plant. He was brought in specifically to turn this plant around, and they were having sanitation issues. And he had a bet with the plant. He said, okay, at the end of the quarter, if you guys improve, and he laid out a bunch of metrics, I will run through the plant on the weekend when we're down in a Batman suit. And you guys all get to watch me do this. And they're like, what? And he's like, I
What?
will do it. And they beat the record. They beat it by a lot. And he ran
Wow.
through the plant in a Batman suit. And they videotaped it for the rest of the company to see. And he's like holding on the cape and he's running through the. It was amazing. And that
That's
happened a
cool.
long time ago, and I still remember that.
You have to think out of the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, part of that then too is you have to be careful as well when you're designing these things, Tino, too, because you have to be careful what you measure. So I always would challenge, especially within our groups, if you put in a metric that just says, I expect the ATP first pass rate to be greater than 98% without anything else. And then all of a sudden it jumps up to 98.5%. Okay, why? Because you could be creating hidden behaviors that you're not aware of.
Right.
So, okay,
Mhm.
I'm only going to sample spots that I know are clean. I'm gonna, when I sample for ATP, I'm gonna do this. Boop, right?
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get a good sample. Um, so you have to challenge those as well to make sure you're not designing a system that's hiding flaws, because that's worse.
definitely. Yeah, you're going to get the opposite.
Yep, absolutely. Um, so let's see what other things we got here too. So one of the things that I was kind of curious as well is, so for your team members, do they, when you train them, do you tend to train team members for specific functions or specific rooms, or do they tend to be generalists who can kind of do whatever you need them to do in the operation to kind of mix it up? What's your approach?
I prefer to have generalists that
Mhm.
understand everything, especially with the turnover rate that we see in sanitation. If
Mhm.
I get too many specialists, then yeah, if the specialist leaves, then I'm stuck. So,
Yeah.
but pretty much they're all generalists. I do have some people who they're better at being on a high lift, right? So they'll get more practice on that. They'll do that. I've got some that are they're just afraid of a forklift. They won't touch a forklift, right? So we
Mhm.
have to work with who we have and within their talents and their limitations and try to make sure that everyone's trained equally.
Mhm.
That's been my approach.
Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense. I agree with that. So, what are some of the warning signs? So, you brought somebody on, you've given them a chance, they're out there and they're kind of doing their things now, but you're a little worried. What are some of the warning signs you see for your team members that they're probably not going to work out?
The first one I see is attendance.
Mm,
They start calling in, they're showing up late, they're not there for shift handoffs. They're lagging behind at the end of the day. They're not punching out for breaks or lunches. That's usually the first thing I see, and then those usually start flagging other things. You start seeing that they're not involved, they're not engaged.
uh,
That kind they're somewhere else. They're not here with us. They're not learning. They're not pushing. They're gliding along as best they can. And like I said, sanitation. You said it. This is not a job for just anybody. It takes a
yeah.
special person. I literally went to the people that I have right now that have been with me because I've been where I am for 2 years. I never thought about doing this before, but I asked everybody who's been with me for those whole 2 years who has not left. And I said, why are you here? Tell me what keeps you here. Right. And the
Mhm.
one thing that I kept getting from most of the people were two things actually was I like taking something that's in chaos and making it look good. That was the first one. And the other thing that they liked was being able to move about the facility. They weren't tied to a line in any way, shape, or form. They had a lot of freedom to they could take their lunch when they needed to, unless we have something going on, right? But for the most part, there's a lot more freedom in sanitation than there are in production jobs. So those are the
True.
two things that were highlighted. So now when I look at a resume, I'm looking for people who are creating, right? Who are changing chaos into order in some way, shape, or form on their job. I'm looking to see, did they have freedom? Because to me, that this speaks to um, they've got freedom to do the job. That means with that freedom comes a certain amount of responsibility, right? You can't just
Right.
walk around the building all day. So you're going to take your freedom. You're going to get your job done. If I can see some longevity on a resume of somebody who did that, was just for instance a security guard, right? They have to move around, but they have a job to do too, right? So someone
Right.
like that might be ideal. I like him, maybe no sanitation background, I can teach him the sanitation part if he brings in those other skills because I need him to be focused, paying attention to details, get around the building, get the job done because we don't have time to follow him because it's myself and I have a supervisor on every shift, and that supervisor is managing 14, 15 other people. He can't be
Yeah.
following one employee all day long, right?
Right.
So those are some of the things that you don't
Mhm.
see from people, right? They're not moving about. They've been at that machine for 2 hours already. They're still sweeping that same floor, and it's been 2 hours. What's going on here?
Right.
And even when you talk to them, you don't see a change. You can tell. You can just
Right.
tell when they don't love it. Sometimes they go to break and they don't come back.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
quickly they
Or
find out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, looking for those. I love that, right? It is looking for those symbols and those telltale signs of disengagement.
Yes.
Lunch, picking up their phone at lunch and sitting at the corner and not talking to anybody. Eh, They're, just those little indicators because we're all people. And we're looking for, we all want on our team those individuals that we can trust. It's okay. Can you do this? Yep, got it, boss. And you know that they've got it. And if something's not right, they're going to come back to you and say, "Hey, Tino, I got a problem. Yeah, what can I help you with?" Right? And they're going to communicate with you, and you know when, as the boss, you know when to jump in. But we need to allow them that freedom. But getting to that point is the hard part.
Yeah.
Yep, Cortland's got a good point here. If you bring in someone with lots of jobs, you inherit their troubles. Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, gosh, time flies. One of the things, Tino, that I always promise first-time guests is that the hour flies by, doesn't it?
Yeah,
We're
you
already
did. It did.
already at the 55-minute mark. There was so much more to talk about here, but we have to kind of bring it back up. So let's bring this up to the 30,000 foot level. And as I promised, I'm going to put in here the comments. So here's the link to Tino's store, which has his book, Get My 75 Sanitation Secrets. Got that for everybody. Beautiful cover. So here's the link for that.
At some point, this will be up there too. This is the
Nice.
first one I wrote in 2019.
Very cool.
I don't have it.
You're an entrepreneurial kind of dude. And that's probably why I like you. So what would you like to leave people with here today, Tino?
You know what I'm going to leave them with is this. I had the privilege of working with Nestle for a while. They bought a pizza company I used to work for, and Nestle bought them 2019, I believe it was. And they kind of were hands off for a while. And like the last 8 months that I was there is when Nestle came in and started introducing us to the Nestle way. They've been around for 160 years, so they know what they're doing. But this is one of the things I learned of it at Nestle was they have a system they call Go, See, Think, Do. And basically go means you go out to the shop floor. See means you go out and you see what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And then you think about it, and then you make your changes. A lot of times we go out to the floor, and I'm going to tell you, this is a tough one. You go out to the floor and you want to start changing things right away. And I've been guilty of that, but you can't do that. Because when I go out to the floor, I don't want my team to feel, oh God, he's back. What am I doing wrong, right? So I go out to the floor, I observe, and I think about what I observed, and then I make whatever changes need to be made based on what I observe. So that's what I would leave with people, because you don't solve anything from your desk. It's all going to happen on the shop floor, which is where most people don't want to be.
Right. Go, see, think, do. I like that.
Yep.
One of the things that I always talk about as well here too is plan, do, check, act, right?
Yes.
What is it? How do I do it? How do I know it's right? And if it's not right, how do I get it back on track? And you just constantly follow that. You can tell a good manager on the floor when they're going out if they're doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
And so often we just get caught into our, it's like, I got to get over to this meeting or whatever. And you're walking through the plant and you're not even looking. You're just completely, you're thinking about the meeting. You're thinking about what you want to talk about, and you're just not looking.
And that's the Nestle thing is when they told us when you do this, that is your focus. You're not going anywhere else. You are going specifically to go, see, think, do. That's your task.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
By the way, I also want to mention, follow me on LinkedIn, because I just issued the Avengers, the Sanitation Heroes. That's going to be great. I'm looking forward. I hope people enjoy this. I hope it helps. It's going to be sanitation training in a whole new way.
Very good. And so as we kind of started the chat with here, let me pull up your LinkedIn profile and I'll put it in here. Whenever I had an issue in the plant, we talked about this a little bit, is the first group I would talk to is sanitation, because they would have the scoop on what happened. If there was a foreign material issue, a micro issue, an environmental issue, sanitation knew the real story, because they were dealing with it every day. So there's your LinkedIn profile, everybody. And also I wanted to throw in here too, and I really haven't talked about this a whole lot, but these chats I've also been putting on Apple as a podcast. And so with the chat now, there's a registration page, and don't worry, I'm not going to sell your information. The main purpose of the registration page is to have that information for people who are attending. And it also then gives you a link. So then afterwards, I send you a link to the recording. Because a lot of times, this is a big time investment, an hour out of your week, especially during a holiday week like this, is people are busy, right? If you're working night shift, it's not like you're hanging around just to do this, right? You want to get home. So this gives people some other options to listen to what we're talking about at times that are more convenient for them. So we're trying to find new ways here to get this content out to people in ways that they can easily consume. So hopefully that works for everybody.
You're doing a great job, Brian.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And great job for you, Tino. And thank you, everybody,
Thanks.
as well. Holiday week.
Thanks, everybody.
Group. I mean, yeah, coming here on Thanksgiving holiday weekend and learning about food safety, we got a good hardcore group here, and we appreciate all that you do. And so with that, enjoy the rest of this holiday week. Get out, have some fun. Avoid. I'm not going to stores. Black Friday stuff, forget it. No, not for me. I'm introverted. I don't want that. So I'm going to be hanging out here at the house for sure. Enjoy your time with the family, Tino, and taking time out to join
you too,
us.
Brian.
Appreciate it.
Thank
and everybody, we'll join you back here next Friday as well for the next Food Safety Chat Live, sponsored by Culture Advisory Group. Thank you, Paul and Brett. And we'll be at the same time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we'll live stream here on LinkedIn and YouTube. So we'll see everybody back here next week. Have a good one, everybody.